Good morning, and welcome to Thought for the Day for Tuesday the 10th of August. Our reading today comes from Mark's Gospel, chapter 3, verses 7 to 19, and I'm reading from the New International Version. To set the scene, at the beginning of this chapter, Mark records Jesus healing a man with a shriveled hand on the Sabbath and in the synagogue, a double whammy as far as the Pharisees were concerned, who began to plot Jesus' death. We then read, large crowds followed Jesus. Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the lake, and a large crowd from Galilee followed. When they heard all he was doing, many people came to him from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, and the regions across the Jordan and around Tyre and Sidon. Because of the crowd, he told his disciples to have a small boat ready for him, to keep the people from crowding him, for he had healed many, so that those with diseases were pushing forward to touch him. Whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." But he gave them strict orders not to tell others about him. Jesus chooses the 12 disciples. Jesus went up on a mountainside and called to him those he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed 12 that they might be with him, and that he might send them out to preach and have authority to drive out demons. These are the 12 that he appointed: Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. To them he gave the name Boanerges, which means sons of thunder. Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. There is so much that could be unpicked from these two short passages, but I would like to focus on two aspects that are mentioned in the passage subheadings: the crowd and the choosing of the disciples. Mark highlights that the crowds came from far and wide, not just from neighbouring Galilee, but from the Jewish heartland of Judea and Jerusalem, and from the Gentile areas, Idumea in the south, beyond the Jordan to the east, and from around Tyre and Sidon in the northwest. Perhaps here we have the first inkling that Jesus' message was not just for the Jews, but that his ministry and the gospel was to extend to all, Jews and Gentiles alike. It must have been frightening to have such large crowds all pushing forward to try and touch Jesus. As one commentator has written, crowds are funny. Crowds don't have brains like people do. Crowds can't reason. They can only react. Crowds can be thrilled one moment and furious the next. Crowds are unpredictable, and for that reason, potentially dangerous. I'm sure we can all think of situations that have been reported in the news over the years, where people have been influenced by the actions of a few who have stirred up a crowd, or where harm, or even worse, has come to those caught up as a mass crowd pushes forward. The crowd in this passage was seemingly attracted to Jesus more because of his ability to miraculously heal than because of his message. Later, of course, the crowd who had hoped for a Messiah that would free them from Rome's control in a show of political and military might, not the servant Messiah, full of grace, truth, sacrifice and love, that crowd turned against Jesus and bayed for his death, stirred up by the Pharisees. So, what messages can we take from this? Are we able to keep our reason and follow what we know to be right when the crowd all around us has a different agenda? Do we withdraw to a place of safety and calm, as Jesus did when he asked his disciples to have a boat ready for him to move out from the crowd, and later when he went up on the mountain? Do we have that lasting relationship with Jesus, recognizing him for who he is, rather than being attracted for what he can do for us? Turning to the choosing of the disciples, Mark is clear. Jesus chose those whom he wanted, and they came willingly. Previously in chapter 1, verses 16 to 20, we read of Simon, Andrew, James and John leaving their nets and following Jesus. Here, in chapter 3, Jesus chooses 12 of his followers to be his close confidants, to be with him through thick and thin, to learn from being around him in the same way an apprentice learns from a master. 12 corresponded with the number of tribes of Israel, suggesting a continuity between the old religious order and the new covenant. These 12 were a diverse bunch: 5 fishermen, a tax collector, a fierce patriarch, a doubter, one who would betray Jesus, and 3 about whom we know little other than their names. Not one stood out for their leadership potential, their talent or ability, but the one characteristic they all shared was their willingness to obey Jesus. What can we learn from the choosing of the 12? Like these first disciples, we do not need any particular talent or credentials to serve Jesus. It is simply a matter of being willing to follow him, to ask for the power of the Holy Spirit, and to recognize that we are wanted, that there is a place for us. Are you ready and willing? Have a blessed day.